The member for Kalamunda.
I'm very pleased to be the first cab off the rank, so to speak, from the outside of the departure lounge to give my valedictory speech. But I do look forward to the speeches of others who follow me and who've had longer in this place, especially that for the member for Lansdale. I think we'll definitely have more colour to her, in his years, we'll have more colour to her speeches than mine. I also want to note that I came to this place way too late in life, with perhaps arguably the best years behind me. But I think I'll go down in the annals of the Parliament of Western Australia as holding a record as one of the oldest, if not the oldest, persons to be elected as the first-time member of this Assembly. There's a certain randomness and unpredictability in life, unexpected events befall each of us. Standing for the election to this place was not what I had planned to do at the age of 67. I have to say, while it's been an interesting experience, it's not been without its frustrations, but we'll come on to those frustrations a little bit later on. You could probably put my tendency to be frustrated down to my being a bit of an old dog, and an old dog not being able to learn new tricks. However, it's been a privilege to serve my time in the Assembly over 2 terms as a backbencher in an impressively successful Western Australian government, to serve my community under the leadership of 2 outstanding premiers, and to have done so without the added experience of serving time, so to speak, on the opposite benches. At the outset, I wish to extend my thanks to the people of the electorate of Kalamunda, where I've been resident in Darlington for over 22 years, for giving me the privilege to represent them in this place. For my election to the Assembly in March 2017, with 52.5% of the 2-party preferred vote, and for re-electing me in 2021 on 51.17% of first preferences, and with 61.66% of the 2-party preferred vote. You can see I'm very pleased with those numbers. I thank WA Labor for affording me the opportunity to be its candidate in the electorate of Kalamunda, and also thank United Voice, now UWU, who adopted me and provided substantial backing and practical support for me in the 2017 and 2021 campaigns. I thank Dave Kelly, the member for Bassendean, now my 2.14 roommate at Parliament House, having replaced my dear friend, Sabine Winton, who was my astute campaign director for both elections and who arranged my adoption. Not much longer now, Dave. It was the member for Bassendean who, early in 2016, while I was principal of John Septimus Roe Anglican Community School, approached me out of the blue to see if I could be persuaded to seek pre-selection for the seat of Kalamunda. I gave the proposal consideration but declined. My view was there could be a person much more younger as a possible choice, those with a longer shelf life, so to speak, and so it turned out. However, later in that year, following her pre-selection for the seat of Kalamunda, Tracy Destry sadly pulled out because of the serious illness being faced by her partner. I have little doubt, had life events turned out differently, she would have been returned as a member of Kalamunda in 2017 and would not be giving her valedictory speech on this occasion. I was approached again, and this time I accepted. Very persuasive, David. Accepted the invitation, the rest is history, so to speak. I wish again to place on record my deep appreciation for the commitment of the grassroots members of the Zigzag branch of the Western Australian Labor Party. For decades, they remained steadfast and tireless in their determination to represent Labor values in our community and to ensure that at each state election, there was a Labor candidate to contest in what was regarded as an absolutely safe Liberal seat. The Zigzag branch and its members are made up of an incredible group of hard-working and well-informed members of the party. It was the hard work of the branch members in combination with the efforts of numerous supporters and helpers that resulted in the successful 2017 and 2021 campaigns, and will equally be successful in 2025. It's not possible to name everyone, simply because this is too long, but I wish to mention the late Dr. Howard Watts, who despite significant health problems turned out to door knock and to hand out how to vote cards and was a steady source of wise counsel to me. I also want to acknowledge Chris Brown, John Walker, James Martin, former Mundaring-Shire councillor and president and Labour candidate for Hasluck in 2019, Marcia Mayer, Sharon Jackson, Helen Lyons, Ailsa Patterson, Peter Quinn, John Reid, Nancy Reid, a name very familiar with people in this place, certainly the surname is, Lynn Sykes, Ben Suber, Noel English, Bruce Glover, Lynn Graham, and our other James, Jim Martin, teacher and musician. Thank you for your continued support and all of your kindness and friendship. The members of the Zigzag branch are just wonderful. They selflessly donate their time and effort, they fundraise, letterbox, phone bank, help door knock and staff pre-poll and polling booths on election day. I'll never be able to return their favour and will always be in their debt for their work to get me elected and to represent Labour in our community. There's another group of my non-party supporters who have regularly been prepared to assist me with the important work of communicating to the electorate. They are affectionately referred to as the stuffers. Over a cup of tea and a chat, they have placed address letters in envelopes. This totals over 14,800 items of addressed mail since March 2021. So thank you, Bridget Case, Jem McComb, Kate Guthrie, Lorraine Sheridan, Ray Marr, Richard Marshall, Sandy Alvis, Sharon Patrick, and Eric Morey. And as everyone knows, an MLA is only as good as their electorate staff. I have been mostly fortunate in my choice of electorate staff, with some notable and vocal exceptions. I thank Alan McCullum, who became my first appointment to my electorate office following his fieldwork on my 2017 campaign, and who then moved to the member for Swan Hills office in 2019, if I remember correctly. As complete novices, we set up our electorate office and office procedures together. Following his departure, eventually I was most fortunate that Nigel Dickinson came to work for me from the member for Thornley's office. Your loss was my gain, bringing his wealth of experience. He's been my principal electorate officer, my guide, and the mainstay of the work of the office since 2018. Together, we have been able to assemble a team of dedicated and collegiate, I would say, part-time staff members. I wish to place on record my deep appreciation for the friendship and the commitment of Karen Beale and Yvonne Fletcher, who has recently joined the team, and to thank former electorate staff members Nancy Reid and Brodie Park. My wife, Christine, who's in the Speaker's Gallery, repeats the adage that behind every man in public life, there is usually a woman rolling her eyes. I'm especially grateful for your eye rolling, your support and encouragement, and your continued wise counsel, in particular over the 2 terms that I've served as a member of this Assembly. Thank you, dear. Christine has her own history of leadership and community activism and involvement in the Labour Party, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about that. She served as a Shire Swan and then City of Swan councillor for the first time in her 20s, and then again for a second stint in her early 40s. She was a founding member of the Guildford Association and over time has served as its president. She's still active in the association and was this year awarded life membership. Only the 3rd person to be given that distinction, and interestingly, all women. Christine, as a ministerial appointment, was responsible back in 1984 for the establishment of Brockman House with Kay Hallahan as the responsible minister, the member for Bassendean will understand the long-standing value and importance of that Labour government initiative. Christine has a sharp and clear mind, is tenacious and resilient, with a capacity for doing downright hard work. You would have made a better MLA than me, Christine. Our family and our community are so very fortunate to have her in our lives.
Yeah, well said.
So I am fortunate to be the parent of 6 wonderful adult children. This should not happen. We were determined it wouldn't. For our grandchildren, Oliver, Rowan, Julian, Riley, Cormac, my voice is breaking, Cormac, Hannah, Patrick, Elijah, little Rowan and Willow, and to our children and their partners, Jacob and Samantha, Esther and Nigel, Niall and Natalie, Liam and Chelsea, to Amy, and with a long-distance virtual hug to Carla in Victoria. Thank you for your support and for enriching my life beyond measure. I will get over this, I promise. So, prior to my election in 2017, I'm not crying about him, but the Honourable John Day
There we are. That should stop
is
you
on
crying.
the Salaries and Allowances Tribunal. Has been the member for Kalamunda since 2008 and a member of the Assembly represented the district in 1993. And from its initial creation in 1974, the electoral district had never returned a Labour member. I do want to thank John Day for his endless his service to our community. He was my Member of Parliament for a good period of time, and he did a damn good job. I like to think my election to a safe Liberal seat was a premonition, members of the 2020 election team, as a premonition of things to come for WA Labour across the state. A lot of you, well, you see it for the advancement that I made in Kalamunda, I think. No, you don't think that? I know many traditional voters made a decision in the 2017 election to support a Labour candidate because they were keen to tell me so. I was going to go on to say a few not unpleasant things, but home truths to the Liberal and National members of the Assembly, but given the time, I might just avoid some of that. Do you want me to? All right, I'll go on. My community was tired of being taken for granted in a safe Liberal seat, tired of the lack of action to tackle a range of local issues, and more broadly, we're simply tired of what they saw as a Barnett government's gross mismanagement of the state's finances, a ballooning debt and annual budget deficits, and they were concerned by rising unemployment and an economy that was on the slide. They saw a government that had little internal discipline, did not learn much in opposition, with no coherent plan for the state and an absent local member they perceived to be disconnected from the needs and concerns of the community. Even more traditional Liberal voters were prepared to lend their support to the Labour member in 2021. I thank them for their continued confidence in me to represent their interests and hope that they will continue to support Labour in the years to come. I attribute my success in part to the accessibility of my office at Shop 9 in the Kalamunda Central. It's a highly visible and accessible location where people know they're welcome to drop in, to seek help or to offer an opinion on matters important to them. Not everyone is capable of writing a letter. They want to come and tell you their story. And people do in large number. It's all too easy to forget the damage the Liberal National Government did to WA, particularly post the 2013 election. All too easy to underestimate the problems left to the McGowan and Cook Labour governments to solve while pursuing its mandate and vision for a better WA. I'm proud, Premier, to have been a member of the WA Labor government that has focused on its solid plan for government since day one. It has focused on making Western Australia a modern, inclusive society where each Western Australian is treated equally and afforded the same accesses to services and opportunities. Your plan has created jobs and has responded to the economic challenges facing the state by working to diversify the economy and focusing on local jobs where employment is driven through the stimulus of broad infrastructure development and a growth in tourism. What do those opposite offer? Rather, from my perspective, those who are slightly round the bend, nothing. Disarray and confusion and carping negativity. You need to get over it. Prior to the 2017 election, the WA Labor campaign campaigned on the theme of a fresh approach to the governance of WA. In 2021, we stood with a pledge to keep people of WA safe and strong. And now, and you can see that the 41 seats won in 2017 and the amazing 53 seats won in 2021 are proof positive that Labor won the overwhelming support of the people of WA. And it's evident that the Cook Labor government continues always to do what is right for WA. Labor has been a government of reform. Of the many pieces of legislation enacted by the Parliament, of which I am most proud as a sitting member, was the passage of the law permitting voluntary assisted dying. For that, I thank the member for Morley for what was an historic step, for her sensitive approach to this issue and marshalling majority support for its balanced measures, and for the law being on our statute books. According to the Go Gentles report, State of VAD in Australia and New Zealand, published in August of this year, since the law took effect in 2021, 446 Western Australians have taken advantage of VAD, representing 1.4% of deaths in the population. 58.4% were male, with a cancer diagnosis of 97. With a cancer diagnosis, and 97 health professionals have completed VAD training. It's not a slippery slope. Rather, it provides the freedom to exercise a deliberate choice. I believe, Speaker, that I've done my best in the ways open to me to live up to the trust placed in me by assiduously bringing to the attention of the government the needs of the communities that make up the diverse electorate that I represent. In preparing my speech, I went back over my inaugural speech to the Assembly to look at the issues which I identified as important to my community, but with some statewide context. There was a need for Western Australians to receive the full benefits from WA's participation in the National Disability Insurance Scheme, rather than being disadvantaged by the separate ONE agreement. The transition pathway to participation in NDS for Western Australians was established in the first term of the McGowan government. As a resident of a fire-prone hills area, I'm pleased WA Labor responded to the recommendation of the Ferguson report, commissioned but not acted on by the Barnett government, to improve our readiness and capacity to respond to the increasing danger of bushfires as a result of climate change, notably leading to the establishment of the Bushfire Centre of Excellence. I identified the lack of available high-needs aged care as another key issue that needed addressing. I refer back to this later in the speech. Specific local issues included community safety and police response times across the electorate following the Barnett government's closure of the Kalamunda police station, clarity about the future of the Kalamunda hospital. One of the first things we did, Premier, was to stand outside that and do it for a social media post. The poor state of the fabric of many of our local public schools and the need for improved public transport across the hills. Not sure we've achieved the latter part. All have been resolved. I hope are in the process of being resolved. In the 2 terms that I served the district, I count among my successes my focus on improving school facilities across the electorate. I know that without fear of contradiction, that each of the primary schools in the electorate is in better shape now than they were back in 2017. I'm thrilled that we have been able to complete the much-needed replacement of all the buildings of the Lesmurdie Primary School, save those provided by, strangely, a Labor Rudd government's BER funding. I wish to place on record the advocacy of the former principal, Richie Griffiths, and the P&C of the school, who lobbied successive governments for the rebuild of that school. We did it for them. Another notable achievement has been the commencement of what is now a $35 million upgrade, what I hope will be the first stage of the systematic upgrade of Kalamunda Senior High School. In addition to the extensive work underway, the school has need of a new facility for industrial art and design, as well as the provision of purpose-built facilities for dance and the music components of its curriculum. And I trust, following Minister Booth's visit, the government sees the need to provide a purpose-built early childhood education centre at Glen Forest Primary School. I count as another notable achievement the securing of the long-term future of Kalamunda Hospital as a result of its development as a centre of excellence for palliative care, serving the communities within the metropolitan region. The construction of Yorkeston Park Community Centre and the major investment in the improvements to visitor facilities at John Forest National Park. Apart from what I've commented on already, my community and I've made small but important gains that have touched on and improved the lives of the members of our Hills communities. Small things. For example, together we've protected the Kalamunda Railway Heritage Trail, sorted out better timetabling for school buses between Mundaring and Kalamunda, got safe pedestrian crossings across Great Eastern Highway in Mundaring and Canning Road in Kalamunda. And the government has provided funding for community and volunteer groups across the Hills, too numerous to mention. They know who they are, from Stoneville to Pickering Brook and everywhere in between. I draw on one example, however. I'm delighted that we have provided substantial funding of $1.2 million to Horsepower Hills, probably known better to the wider communities as Riding for the Disabled, to purchase a permanent home in Chidlow. I would count this as one of the most satisfying outcomes with which I've been directly associated. Having said that, it's the volunteers who provided time, effort and energy over 5 decades to providing recreation and therapy through horse riding to people, many with significant disabilities, who deserve all the credit. Thank you to Willie and Rod Warnock for the grace and favour use of a property as a temporary home over many, many, many years. And to Lynn Fisher, Horsepower Hills principal advocate, who almost from day one of my election in 2017 engaged me in what was at times the frustrated, and I mean frustrated, not frustrating, the frustrated work to secure a permanent home no longer dependent on a couple's largesse. I thank Premier Roger Cook for hearing me out on this issue and for seeing a way that this outcome could be achieved. A top priority has been my work to secure suitable laser government land for residential aged care and to assist local private landowners to secure state planning approval for aged care developments. I count as a success my advocacy to the Labour government for the establishment of the Intergovernment Department Aged Care Availability Working Group that examined ways in which the state government could assist with ensuring government land suitable for aged care could be made available to the market. I was pleased to be invited to sit on the working group which reported to the Minister for Planning Lands and to the Minister for Health in October 2019 with 5 clear recommendations. The recommendations led to the Western Australian Planning Commission's adopting and the government gazetting a position statement to guide local government approvals for residential aged care, as well as measures with the Department of Lands to identify and bring to the market government land suitably located for residential care. The state government can take the land to the market, but it's not able, apparently, to make some of the providers build. It's a point that the Minister, Carey, has made very clear to my community. This work has also resulted in the state government's commitment to revising the terms of reference of the Aged Care Advisory Panel established during the height of the COVID epidemic to place a sharper focus on a more coordinated approach between providers and the state government in determining how best the state can assist with advocating to the Commonwealth for a more equitable distribution of and therefore access to residential aged care across our communities. From 2019 to 2023, I was privileged to chair the Pickering Brook and Strand Sustainability Working Group reporting to the Minister's Task Force. The establishment of the task force resulted from my advocating to the then Minister for Planning and Lands for the need to re-examine the possibility of a suitable limited expansion of the town site in the context of the economic opportunities for continuing horticulture activity in the district and the district's tourism potential linked to that activity and the broader economic opportunities afforded by Hughes as a tourism destination. The working group has prepared 2 reports. The first recommended to the task force the modest but meaningful expansion of the town site, requiring the initiation of a metropolitan scheme amendment by the West Australian Planning Commission. That initiation has yet to occur, and that is after 4 years later on from when that report was made public to the community. The second report examines the broader issue of the sustainable economic development of the district firmly based on agriculture, the area's natural assets and the derived tourism opportunities. The recommendations in this second report require the cooperative participation of a number of government agencies in pursuit of the initiatives and recommendations contained in the proposed strategy, and a lead agency to take responsibility for guiding their implementation. Both of these reports, drawn from detailed and methodical work conducted over a 5-year period, backed by detailed analyses with a set of proven achievable objectives, are in the public domain. And therefore, there's a strong community support for the directions contained in the reports and an expectation that the government will commit to ensuring they are realised. In my first term, I was appointed the chair for the Rural and Remote Education Advisory Council, but was not afforded this opportunity in the 41st Parliament. In my term as chair, the council undertook community consultations across the West and East Kimberley and provided 2 reports to the then Minister for Education that examined the implementation of the Kimberley Schools project and the Department and non-government system policies regarding recruitment, professional development and retention of principals and staff, and the engagement of students and their families with their schools. I'm hoping that the findings and recommendations contained in the reports have found their way into the policy development section of the Department of Education. The reports point to ways that the delivery of education to rural and remote communities can be improved. We know that for many West Australians, through the accident of birth and nothing else, that they find themselves materially impoverished, marginalised and excluded. We know that despite affluence and opportunity afforded to the majority of us, that for too many of our children, particularly our Indigenous children, this is not the lucky country. And despite great endeavours on both sides of the chamber, when in government, the gap between the advantage and disadvantage is still too wide. It's been my privilege to sit as a member of the Parliamentary Joint Standing Committee on the Corruption and Crime Commission in the 40th and 41st Parliaments and to be its current chair. Do I need to seek an extension of time? Or are you indulging me absolutely?
It's not possible to get a formal extension, but I'll see what leeway you can have.
I don't have much to go. I sincerely thank my colleagues on the committee, the Honourable Steve Thomas, MLC, Deputy Chair, the Honourable Mia Davies, MLA, and the Honourable Clara Andrick, MLC. Bipartisan professionalism and collegiality have been a hallmark of our work. That approach has enabled the committee to responsibly discharge its oversight and other duties to this Parliament. There are 2 more reports to come. Report 15, that responds to the CCC's report on the Ombudsman's Office, which I will be tabling tomorrow, and Report 16 on the Corruption and Crime Commission's management of its own misconduct risks. Interesting reading, that the committee intends to table on Thursday, the 28th of November. The committee has been ably served over the term of this Parliament by Suzanne Valletta, its Principal Research Officer, and its Associate Research Officer, Javita Hogan. Both are long-serving, experienced members of the staff of the Parliament. We have benefited greatly from their combined experience. I wish to place on record my thanks for their dedication, professionalism, their support of the work of the committee. It's been a pleasure and instructional to have been able to work closer with each of you. And in doing so, I thank the clerk and the deputy clerk and all the staff of the Parliament providing services to members of this chamber and beyond. Madam Speaker, my age and matters affecting my health have made it sensible for me to not seek a third term. I'll leave this place on the cusp of my 75th birthday. Not to be morbid about things, but actual tables indicate that a male of my age can expect to live until they're 82 or so, all else being equal. I intend to do that, but we'll see. There's too little discretionary time left to take another waltz around the dance floor, so to speak, with little sense that I could achieve more than I've been able to tick off the to-do list over the terms of the Parliament. It's been an enormous privilege to represent the people of my district as a Labour member. It's not a role that a lad from a council housing estate in a small Lancashire town, raised by a single mum, could ever envisage as a possibility. I believe I've given a good go since 2017, and that I've brought the needs of the district squarely in front of the government with some sound outcomes. That is the most a backbencher can do. It's up to the government to respond where it can or chooses. There will always be more to be done, and I'll leave that in the capable hands of the next Labour member for the seat of Kalamunda. And in Karen Beale, we have that candidate with a lifelong connection to and involvement in our Hills communities. And I'm confident she will pick up where I have left off as a member of a re-elected Cook Labour government with its firm focus on doing what is best for WA. Labour achievements since we came to power warrant Labour, WA Labour, and its hard-working sitting MPs and carefully pre-selected candidates being returned to contribute a further 4 terms of sound and responsive government to Western Australians. To my parliamentary colleagues seeking re-election and the pre-selected WA Labour candidates, I wish you success in the March election. To paraphrase the words of the Honourable Ben Wyatt MLA on leaving this place, we leave it to the tiny band of the opposition and to the tiny band of Liberal national candidates. I wish you well and good health, but I don't wish you success.
Members, I'll just allow a few moments for some guests to potentially leave the chamber and others to accommodate themselves in the Speaker's Gallery. I might also note that